Hello, this is Pat Cahill from Pat Cahill Metalworks, and today we're going to be making a box. And I'm going to make your classic way of making a box today, unlike the other day where I did it a little bit different. And with this box, I'm going to have the top's going to be this Labradorite. So what I want to do is measure how much the Labradorite is, which I've already done here with my calipers, and I've added a little bit, about a 1.5 millimeters. And I'm going to score a line with the calipers. And now we have our line. And what we want to do is get a nice groove in there. And that groove has to be absolutely 90 degrees from the edge. And that is probably one of the tougher parts of this procedure, making a box, is getting that exactly 90 degrees. And there are many ways people tell you how to do it. I'm going to show you my little way. I'm bringing the camera over here. And what I do, I use a saw, and right at the edge of my line, I make a little indentation. And the same thing I do on the other side, right at my score line. One needs to be very exacting here. I'm trying to do it so you can see, so I don't have you can see I'm going very careful here because I don't want to be off the line by just even a little bit. Okay, so now I have scores on both my sides. I can make them a little bit bigger and more towards the middle. So I lift my piece up. And I do the same thing on the other side. Just trying to go more and more so that it's going to, there. So now they both match up. And I make basically I'm scoring it again, but much deeper now with the saw. Okay, so now I have a pretty deep line. I can judge how well I did with my L square, and I can see I've done a pretty good job. So now I just take a square file and carefully file out the groove, going slow at first. And I know my hands are in the way, but basically here's my square file. Doing it so that the two things on the bottom point, and they go out 90 degrees on each side. So I'm holding on to the point at the top, or one edge of it, so that it will give me my 90 degree groove. Okay, so that's all there is to that. I just again show you. You don't have to muscle it, just take your time. You can use something to hold it, either a clamp or anything you like. Say for instance, just clamp it with this. Get it in there nice. Get a nice surface for you to file, and then just file. And take your time to do it. What you want to get it to be about 3/4 to slightly more deep through the way of the metal. So this has a ways to go. So I'm going to do this off camera, and I'll bring it back when I'm done. Okay, so I finished filing the groove, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's just a little over 3/4 of the way through the metal. And now you can just bend it by hand, or you can use your block to, I don't think it really helps. So just bend it. It's not going to be at a right, well, yeah, it's pretty close. More work on that though. Up to our block. And there we go. Nice straight. And you can tell that it's nice and straight because you bring it over to the edge and the edges line up with the edge. Okay, so here's our second one. And it looks like it's nice and perpendicular. Same as the first. Again, checking against the side so you can see that it's nice and perpendicular with one another. And the next part is to just make sure I have the right sides. I think I made these both exactly the same. That's okay though. They can be the same size. What I want to do is make sure that I am making this box so that it will fit that stone. So either way I can do it that way or this way. It doesn't matter. Okay, so the next step is to make sure that you have both sides exactly the same height. And that looks pretty darn good. So now I want to see exactly how big I want the box. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the stone and I'm judging how far. See, I can make box like that all the way out. Almost make it exactly the same size as the two sides, but I want this to fit the stone as best as possible. And need a little play. So right there. Now how do I want to make a little mark with my scribe. Okay. I have my mark, and the mark is on the outside. So we're all ready to solder these two pieces together. Now, actually what you'd probably want to do is solder the two corners so they're nice and strong. They look pretty strong already, but it doesn't hurt to do that. So I'm going to get ready for soldering, get my solder station up, and we're going to solder the two corners that we just bent so that they will be strong as possible. And then we're set up to solder the two things to each other with our scribe lines. Okay, so first I'm going to do is solder the corners so that it strengthens them. So put on a little flux. You got to remember, we went 3/4 of the way through, so groove to bend it. So these could do with a little bit of solder. Sorry. Just having too much fun putting on the flux there. All right. Okay, we're ready to solder now, and I've applied the flux to each one of the corners. I'm going to firm up our corner, and now I'm going to add solder to the corner. There we go. Okay. This is where if you pick solder, you probably do a much better job, or a much easier job. Okay, so evenly heat up our sides of our box. No need to go right on the solder yet. It won't flow until it's hot enough. You can see it's starting to melt now, so bring it down. And if you got the right angle, you can see that it just flowed right down there. So maybe doing this, you'll be able to see it. It's not really ready yet. I'll turn it when it is. You see it? I hope so. Here we go. Now if you don't feel like you went all the way down to the bottom, you can always flip it over and do the same thing going this way. But I think I got it, so I'm going to put them in the pickle. And I'll get back to you for the next step. Okay, now we're ready to solder the two sides together. You do one at a time, one corner of each side. Start out with this one. Heat up the whole box. Standard procedure. I lined up with the little marks I made, the scribe marks, so I know that it's at the right distance. And there we go, we flowed. Okay. We can either put this in a pickle or do the other side, which I'm going to just do the other side now, rather than making it a two-step process. Okay. As it starts to flow, I bring the heat back inside to draw it through, and there we're done. So again, that's the four sides of our box. I'll put it in the pickle, and I'll get back to you for the next step, putting on the bottom. Okay, now we're ready to solder the sides onto the bottom. You want to make sure that your sides have been sanded so they lay nice and flat on the surface with no gaps. I would just put solder chips around the piece. That's a big chip, but that's okay. One thing that you might be noticing, I'm not cleaning up at all during these steps. I'm not cutting off these pieces, and that's pretty good practice. It's a very good practice. You don't want to overly clean up between steps, remove solder, because the solder is going to continue to flow a little bit, and you could eat away at the solder when you're doing these many solder things. And I actually have done this. I'm pretty bad about, I like to get everything all cleaned up like it's ready, perfectly finished almost, to go on to the next step, and that's just not what you want to do. It's not a good idea. Trust me, I learned that. Seems like I can't unlearn that either. It's not like okay, don't do that. See, the excess solder that they have on these portions, if it does flow, then it will only just flow and make the box stronger. It won't start eating out from the inside, and you'll start to get these little solder gaps. Which basically, if you get that, it's, well, for me it's into the F-it bucket, because I'm not going to be displaying or selling a box that has flaws like that in it. Alright, there'll be one little guy. Jump around like a jumping bean. And we're just heating up the whole piece. I could actually use my bigger torch here, or a bigger nozzle for the torch. This is a lot of silver. This is 18 gauge, so it's big, chunky. Really makes nice boxes. You can really feel like the heft of the box. You buy these silver pill boxes from before, or vintage stuff. It's all, most of it's pressed, so it's quite thin. I'd say like maybe 22, maybe less than 22 gauge. So it's just not the same. Okay, so this is pretty much all good. It's done. It's flowed. So again, into the pickle, and I'll bring it back when we're ready for the next step. Okay, it's all soldered. We have our bottom and 4 sides. And the next step is going to be fashioning the top with the stone. But in order to do that, I really do, at this point, nothing more is going to happen to this, because it's going to be a pressure fit box. So at this point, it's ready to finish this. So I'm going to do this off camera. It's basically sawing all around the edges, down here, and then filing and sanding so that it's all flush with one another. You've seen me do that before, so I'll be back when it's done. Okay, so I cleaned up all the sides, sawed off all the excess, and then filed it down, and then sanded it. So our next step is to cut off a portion so that we can form the top of the box. And I'm just using these dividers here, and I'll score a line along each side. And just like that. And then I will set it up on my bench vise and saw through the line, and you've seen that with the previous box, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be back when I'm done.